aspirations, we have dreams. We deserve to have a president who taps into that
opportunity and hope, and we will bring back the American dream.
Tonight, we are less than 24 hours away from Election Day. It's up to the voters who will be the next president of the United States.
Now the fate of our nation is in your hands. If we win Pennsylvania, we're going to win the whole deal.
So, Philly, I've got a question for you. Are you ready to do this?
All eyes are on the battleground state of Pennsylvania. It all comes down to this. Tomorrow, America decides. We are in the final hours before a historic election, and we're making history live from our CBS News Philadelphia virtual reality election studio. And good evening, everyone. I'm Ukee, Washington.
And I'm Natasha Brown. Tens of millions of people have already cast their votes. The biggest race, of course, the race for the White House.
And the world will be watching as America decides the 47th president of these United States.
Now, the race for the White House will likely come down to 7 battleground states.
Now, let's show you our U.S. map. Those 7 battleground states are Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and, of course, Pennsylvania. And all of the battlegrounds, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has the highest number of electoral votes. It's considered a must-win for both campaigns.
That's right, and that is why Vice President Harris and former President Trump are spending an extensive amount of time in the Keystone State on this election eve.
Now, Vice President Harris will be in Philadelphia tonight with a star-studded concert and rally on the Ben Franklin Parkway. Our Carrie Corrado is there right now with more on the Vice President's Election Eve push in Pennsylvania. Carrie, a good Election Eve to you.
Ukee, good evening. There is a lot of excitement here on this Election Eve. Now, this area is packed. The Art Museum steps have been transformed. There are lights up and down the steps, and then the stage is right at the base of it. And we are expecting a very star-studded lineup tonight with Lady Gaga, Oprah, Ricky Martin, and the Roots. There are people from all over Pennsylvania and all over the world here for this Vote for Freedom rally. Now, Eakins Oval, like I mentioned earlier, is packed, and people are rows deep along the fences here trying to get a glimpse. Now, we have a band performing now and a DJ who is really trying to pump everyone up, and then the crews are making their final touches on this setup here tonight. Earlier in the day, though, Kamala Harris spoke in Allentown, and this was one of many stops before her rally tonight right here in Philadelphia.
America is ready for a new way forward where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor. We are ready.
Also today, Harris made a stop at a Reading restaurant. This all part of a last-minute push to secure some votes ahead of Election Day. And we are all here ready for that rally to start. But again, it's packed. A lot of excitement here on this Election Eve. Ukee, Natasha, I'll send it back to you.
Vice President Harris.
Won't be long now. Gary, thank you so much. Well, Donald Trump is in Pittsburgh right now and will head to another battleground state, Michigan, later tonight.
And he spent this morning in North Carolina and the afternoon in our area, and our own Josh Sanders was there for the rally in Allentown.
Well, this was all about getting out the vote in a crucial battleground state in Pennsylvania for both the Harris and Trump campaign. The former president, Donald Trump, came out to an arena that sits 9,000 people. I will say there were several empty seats in the arena, but for his supporters here, they were excited to hear him. Experts say Pennsylvania's Latino community could determine which campaign takes those crucial 19 electoral votes, and then the White House. A big purpose for the campaign to stop here is because nearly 70% of Reading's population identifies as Latino. Trump's campaign recently faced backlash after a comedian at a Madison Square Garden rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Meanwhile, Trump shared his optimism about Election Day and winning Pennsylvania.
If we win Pennsylvania, not me, if we win Pennsylvania, we win the whole ball of wax. It's over.
Reading is one of many stops for the president as he wraps up tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as all eyes remain on Pennsylvania as a critical battleground state for the campaign. Josh Sanders, CBS News, Philadelphia.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. Now, CBS News Philadelphia has reached out to both presidential campaigns for one-on-one interviews. So far, only the Harris campaign has agreed to one.
The vice president sat down with our Dan Snyder, and here's part of their conversation.
One thing I think stands out when I talk to undecided voters is they say, well, she's changed her opinion on some pretty important topics to me over the last 4 years. How can I trust she's being authentic? So how can voters trust that the Kamala Harris they're getting on the campaign trail in 2024 is the Kamala Harris that would be president?
I've been vice president for 4 years, and I have traveled our country, and it is very clear to me that if we're going to arrive at solutions, it has to be through a process where we build consensus, where we seek common ground, and that requires compromise. My values on so many of these issues, let's talk about health care as an example, are consistent. I strongly believe and still maintain access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. I know that most people don't have the money to be able to hire somebody to come in and help them take care of their parents, while there are also a lot of folks in the sandwich generation raising their children. And they shouldn't have to spend down their life savings to qualify for Medicaid. These are basic principles that I feel very strongly about.
4 years ago, Joe Biden kind of came into office seen as this great unifier. He was going to restore the soul of the nation, but we are still a very divided country. What would you do differently than Joe Biden to bring this country back together?
Well, first of all, my presidency is not going to be a continuation of the Biden presidency. I bring to my perspective my own ideas, my own experiences, and a lot of how I think about it is also focused on this moment in time and what we need to do to meet the challenges of the American family and American individuals. Part of my feeling about all of this is a lived and very deeply held belief and experience that the vast majority of Americans have more in common than what separates us. And we need a president of the United States who, moving forward, as we turn the page on the last decade, frankly, during the Trump era that has been about trying to divide Americans and have people point their fingers at each other, that we have a president who leads knowing that the vast majority of Americans have more in common than what separates us.
As we mentioned, and we want to do it again, we have reached out to the Trump campaign numerous times, emails, phone calls, for a sit-down interview. And
so far, they have not accepted our requests. Meantime, our special election coverage does continue ahead.
We're going to walk you through everything our virtual studio has to offer and how we plan to cover this historic election come tomorrow night. Here at CBS, we've been with you through the years, through close elections, landslide victories, even elections that were too close to call on election night.
And we have always had a team of experienced journalists guiding us with the very latest technology. And now here we are in the CBS News Philadelphia virtual reality election studio to show you election results as soon as they come in.
But first, a look back through the years of CBS News election night coverage.
Good evening, everyone. This is Walter Cronkite speaking to you from CBS Television Election Headquarters here in New York City. The big election night, 1952, the year when the United States picked its 35th president.
For those millions of Americans who have voted and worked and hoped for a change, tonight they have got it.
It is clearly necessary that men and women of goodwill of both parties devote themselves to the single purpose of a better future.
It certainly looks like a Nixon sweep. What unites America today is infinitely more important than those things which divide us.
The South came back to the Democratic Party. The result was a Carter sweep of the South.
Ronald Reagan isn't just beating Jimmy Carter, he's submerging him.
The firestorm for Ronald Reagan continues to sweep the country. How wide, how deep is the Reagan victory?
It's an avalanche, landslide if you want to call it that, a political earthquake of sorts.
The Senate's going to be a different place, the House is going to be a different place, and obviously the White House is going to be a different place.
The man who wins Florida becomes the next president.
We could go to bed tonight and not know who the president of the United States is.
Barack Obama has been elected president of the United States.
We are and always will be the United States of America. The nastiest presidential campaign in our lifetimes has finally come to an end.
Ours was not a campaign, but rather an incredible and great movement.
This moment where we're really waiting to get some of the final vote count. We are watching history unfold at the end of what has been an extraordinary election week.
Don't tell me it's not possible in the United States. A UNIVAC is a fabulous electronic machine which we have borrowed to help us predict this election.
Let me use the touch screen, which is a new tool we have here.
We are in cyberspace, but the information we have to give to you is quite real.
Let's glance at that for a moment and see what an amazing board they've rigged up.
So let's take a look then at the map.
We're getting to that time of night. We're all on our third cup of coffee.
Exactly.
We got a ways to go.
Could you give me some good logical reason then why I'm still sitting here?
Oh, well.
How long can you last?
Well, well, I'll tell you, I'm a long-distance runner and an all-day hunter, and I'll be here because this is just too good to miss.
Well, so much history, so many extraordinary moments. And now here we are at the CBS News Philadelphia virtual reality studio here. Dan Snyder will be right here in this spot on election night, bringing us results on this interactive monitor. All he has to do is push a button to look at various states and counties and check the returns as they come in. Now, let's walk over here and show you another feature that you'll also be seeing. Tomorrow night, we will also be able to show you results right here with graphics that pop up out of the floor. We will take a look at the races that impact all of us, from Congress to local state houses and much more. And this race in particular, this one will be historic, the race for Senate in Delaware. If Lisa Blunt Rochester defeats Eric Hansen, she would become the first black woman to represent Delaware in the Senate. So we'll be watching that race very closely. And now I'm going to walk back over here to the center of our virtual election studio to meet my friend Ukee Washington.
And Natasha, like Dan Rather said, this is just too good to miss, no doubt about it. This is our home base where we can show you even more magic, a map of the country right on the floor. We can specifically look at results coming in from each state, including our battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. We'll also be looking at all the battlegrounds as well as New Jersey and Delaware all throughout the night. Ukee, let's step out for a second. We got to show them something else. It's pretty cool as well.
Very nice. And here it is. Look at this. How beautiful is that? Take a look. This is our window into Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, definitely keeping our eyes on the prize tonight and tomorrow night. In this area, we can show you the results in the presidential race.
Right now, of course, we don't have any results. It's not election night just yet, but come tomorrow, we will be watching very closely. A candidate does need at least 270 electoral votes to win the White House, as we know now. And by all accounts, this could be a very, very tight race down to the wire. We may not even know how this race is decided by the end of the night.
And that's for sure. CBS News Philadelphia working hand in hand with CBS News to bring you the results as they come in. So let's talk about those results and how CBS News projects races.
Well, our Nikki Dementri caught up with CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. He is actually the one who makes a projection, letting us know state by state when we are confident enough to report that a winner has been decided.
Hi there, Anthony. Thank you for joining us. First, walk us through how you will cover election night and what people should expect.
I'm going to show you an example right there from Pennsylvania of how we walk people through this. The first thing is that as we go along the night in real time, we're going to tell you if a state is a toss-up, if it's leaning towards one candidate or the other, and then ultimately make a projection. One of the key things we look for is patterns across the counties. So let me give you an example of what we're looking for, because one of the things that's so interesting is how the votes shift from year to year. We're going to be looking across counties, and this is how they shifted in 2020. You see a lot of the areas around you shifted towards, we put them in blue here, that's towards the Democrats. Some of them were rural areas, shifted a little bit or some a lot towards, in that case was Donald Trump. But we look for those patterns because consistency matters when we're projecting a race. The other thing that's really interesting and always worth watching, of course, when we talk about those historical patterns, we're going to show folks where the votes are coming from. And one thing I usually like to do is, here's a map. The red area is Republican. The blue, especially a lot around you, so important around Philadelphia and the suburbs. Those are places where Democrats
Democrats try to run up the margins, try to build a lot of votes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the state on its axis a little bit to show you that in 3D, the higher bars are the places that have more votes. And so you can see that Philadelphia and the surrounding area and in Pittsburgh have more votes. That's where Democrats traditionally build up those vote margins. But Donald Trump and Republicans are going to try to very consistently win a lot of these smaller counties here, especially in central Pennsylvania. And so when we see those patterns, that's one way we can start to be confident about who's got the edge.
Well, we do know that the race for president could come down to Pennsylvania. Both Trump and Harris have spent an extensive amount of time here, including several stops even today on election eve. And Harris is even in Philadelphia tonight on this election eve. Dan Snyder joining us now with a look at, what we'll be watching for in our area as far as turnout, especially here in the Philadelphia area and those suburbs outside of Philly.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is so big, so diverse, so many different things factor into what or who's going to win Pennsylvania. But I wanted to point out a couple of things in our area that we're really going to be keeping an eye on. So here you see Pennsylvania, a blank slate today, but as we start getting those votes tomorrow, you're going to start seeing these counties fill in with red and blue. So the first thing we want to look at, and Anthony hinted at it a little bit there, the Philly 5-county area, such a big area specifically for Democrats. And what I mean by that, take a look at Philadelphia County and we'll go back to 2020. You can see Joe Biden's vote totals here. 603,000 votes in Philadelphia County alone. You go up to Montgomery County, 319,000 votes. Delaware County, 206,000 votes. The big difference between 2016 and 2020, when Hillary Clinton lost, Joe Biden won. Joe Biden had 190,000 more votes in the Philly 5-county area than Hillary Clinton did. Clinton lost by 44,000. Biden won by 80,000. So that turnout in the Philly 5-county is going to be big. We'll see if Vice President Harris's numbers are closer to Clinton, closer to Biden, somewhere in between, but that could make a significant difference. We're also going to be keeping an eye on what we call bellwether counties, and in our area there is one of them. That's Northampton County. You can see it highlighted on your screen right there. These are counties that sort of show how the state is going. Northampton County, for example, voted President Obama in 2012, Donald Trump in 2016, Joe Biden in 2020. They swing back and forth. In fact, Northampton County has gone with the state's presidential pick every year going back to 1948. So little Northampton County, you see it a couple years ago. Joe Biden won it by just 1,200 votes, indicated a close race there. Biden won Northampton County. Biden ended up winning Pennsylvania. So just a couple things that we're really going to be keeping an eye on as those numbers start to roll in tomorrow. Ukee, Natasha? All
right. We all know that these counties, whether they're in the Philadelphia area, the central part of the state, the western part of the state, they're all going to make all the difference in who wins or loses this Commonwealth.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dan. We appreciate it.
Well, still ahead with the race for president comes the race for vice president.
Our countdown to Election Day does continue.
Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
We have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington.
And as America decides on the next president of the United States, they're also deciding on the next vice president. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz running alongside Kamala Harris, and Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio running alongside former President Trump. Both have campaigned in our area. Senator Vance will be in Newtown, Bucks County later tonight. Now, this is video from a rally he had yesterday in Aston Township, Delaware County. Earlier this month, Senator Vance was in Montgomery County. During that visit, he spoke one-on-one with our Josh Sanders about why Pennsylvania is so crucial to the Trump campaign.
Pennsylvania, to me, represents the greatness of American manufacturing, of American energy, and I think it's a state that really, I think, is receptive to the Trump message that we need to bring more good manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America, rebuild the middle class, make groceries and housing more affordable. And so part of it is just that we think Pennsylvania is very receptive to our message. But look, I mean, part of it is just the battleground math, right? This is a very important state. It's obviously very closely divided.
Governor Walz spoke in Bucks County last week. He visited the Boilermakers Local 13 Labor Hall in Bristol Township. Now, the governor talked about the Harris campaign's support for unions and the middle class. He also talked about the impact of the Commonwealth in the race to the White House.
In this state and in Bucks County, 1 or 2 votes per precinct could not only swing the election in Pennsylvania, but for the entire country. The privilege and the responsibility to the folks in this room, it is not hyperbole to say this presidential election could run right through Local 13 today. The folks in this room going out, getting people to vote, getting others to be in, and making sure that we can do it.
Well, you know, this election season, it has been full of rhetoric, but we are boiling it down to the issues.
What do Harris and Trump stand for? We break it down by candidate when we come back. It all comes down to tomorrow, Election Day 2024, when America decides on a new president. And it just might come down to the state of Pennsylvania. And that is why the candidates have focused so much on the Keystone State and its 19 electoral votes.
Well, Donald Trump is in Pittsburgh right now, but he spent the afternoon in Reading, and our Josh Sanders was there.
Well, this was all about getting out the vote in a crucial battleground state in Pennsylvania for both the Harris and Trump campaign. The former president, Donald Trump, came out to an arena that sits 9,000 people. I will say there were several empty seats in the arena, but for his supporters here, they were excited to hear him. Experts say Pennsylvania's Latino community could determine which campaign takes those crucial 19 electoral votes and then the White House. A big purpose for the campaign to stop here is because nearly 70% of Reading's population identifies as Latino. Trump's campaign recently faced backlash after a comedian at a Madison Square Garden rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Meanwhile, Trump shared his optimism about Election Day and winning Pennsylvania.
If we win Pennsylvania, not me, if we win Pennsylvania, we win the whole ball of wax. It's over. It's over. So I'd like to begin by asking you a very, very easy, simple question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? With your vote tomorrow, I will end inflation, I will stop the invasion of criminals coming into our country, and I will bring back the American dream. You're going to have the American dream back.
Reading is one of many stops for the president as he wraps up tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as all eyes remain on Pennsylvania as a critical battleground state for the campaign. Josh Sanders, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Well, at this very moment, Vice President Kamala Harris is heading from Pittsburgh in the western part of the state to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
That's right. There is a rally and a concert on the Ben Franklin Parkway, and our Carrie Corrado is live there with actually more on the vice president's final push in Pennsylvania to get out the vote and really just to fire up her base, Carrie.
Natasha, good evening. There is a lot of excitement here on this election eve. This area is packed and the Art Museum steps have been transformed into a stage. Right now we have Mayor Sherrell Parker on stage speaking to the crowd. I also want to show you this crowd. If we bring you over, there are people from all over Pennsylvania and then all over the world here for this Vote for Freedom rally. People are rows deep along the fences trying to get a glimpse of all of this right now. We are expecting a very star-studded lineup tonight at Eakins Oval with Lady Gaga, Oprah, Ricky Martin, and The Roots. We have a band performing, a DJ was trying to pump everyone up, and crews were making the final touches on this setup all here tonight. Earlier in the day, Kamala Harris spoke in Allentown. This was one of many stops before her rally tonight here in Philadelphia. She is making this special stop hours before the polls open.
We're ready to vote. Are we ready to win? Pennsylvania, I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. As president, I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face. I I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress.
Democracy and who? Also today, Harris made a stop at a Reading restaurant. This all part of a last-minute push to secure some votes ahead of Election Day. We're all here ready for that rally to start. Many of these people have been here for hours, counting down the hours until they see Harris take that stage. So we'll keep you posted. I'll send it back to you.
All right, all of this underscoring the importance of the battleground state of Pennsylvania tonight. Thank you very much, Carrie. We do appreciate that. Now, it has certainly been a very contentious campaign season with so much rhetoric, so many advertisements, so many rallies and events that have happened. And here in our area and all across the country, that has been the case.
Contentious indeed. So let's boil it down to the issues. What do the candidates stand for?
The former president has hammered the Biden administration for presiding over an increase in inflation.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Yes.
Trump has said he will extend and expand his 2017 tax cuts. He has also called for expanding tariffs on nearly all imported foreign goods. And he would offer more support for coal, oil, and gas and cut back on renewable energy initiatives. Harris says she would provide bigger tax benefits for families and would offset the costs by raising corporate taxes.
My plan will also give middle-class tax cuts to 100 million Americans, including $6,000 tax credit for the first year of a child's life.
Harris has called for 3 million affordable new homes and rentals by the end of her first term, offering tax breaks to builders who construct homes for first-time home buyers, and proposing up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. Both candidates have called for eliminating federal taxes on tips received by workers. Harris has made abortion rights a focal point of her campaign. The Supreme Court overturned the right to abortion more than 2 years ago.
Please know, no one is protected if there is a Trump national abortion ban, and it will outlaw abortion in every single state.
The vice president pledged to sign into law legislation that restores the federal right to abortion if such a bill is passed by Congress. Trump says he would leave the decision on abortion access and cutoffs to the states.
No, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Trump has promised to use the military to expel 11 million undocumented immigrants and describe them as criminals and animals.
I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Harris has denounced that plan. Harris has said she would sign a bipartisan bill to toughen asylum restrictions and increase the number of border agents. She also called for a legal pathway to citizenship for some undocumented migrants.
We can do both. Create an earned pathway to citizenship and ensure our border is secure.
Now, all of these issues have been top of mind for voters and will continue to be as people head to the polls tomorrow.
That's right. Now, you know, the road to the White House, it is not just about who wins the most votes, not about the popular vote. It's about who can win the 270 electoral votes that will solidify their win to the White House. And Dan Snyder joining us now. Dan, you've got this puzzle that you're kind of configuring, right, in terms of how to get to 270.
Yeah, we're going to have a little fun with math today. All right. And we're going to show there's a method to the madness here of why the campaigns are spending so much time where they are. And I'm going to show you why Pennsylvania is so important to both of these campaigns. So here is the map, and all those little numbers you see, those are the electoral votes. You need to get to 270 to win. Now, of course, tomorrow, as we start getting results in, these states will flip red and blue based on how their votes go. But let's take a look at how each candidate wins the White House. And we'll start with Vice President Kamala Harris. Her math really goes through what are known as the blue wall states. Those would be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If Harris wins those and the 2nd congressional district in Nebraska, that one electoral vote, she hits 270. That's a ball game. Harris becomes the 47th president of the United States. That's what she needs. Here's why Pennsylvania is important. Take Pennsylvania off the map and say Harris holds Georgia, a state that Joe Biden won 4 years ago. That's only 267. She would need to pick up a Nevada or an Arizona or a North Carolina to get her over that 270 threshold. How about former President Trump? Let's take a look at his math. Let's say the former president, he holds on to North Carolina. That's his state. He won the last 2 election cycles, and he recaptures some of those traditionally red states. How about Georgia and Arizona? That's not enough. Even if you add in Nevada, still not enough for the former president. But if we take away Nevada, we take away Arizona, we send Pennsylvania to former President Trump, that puts him at 270. So that's really why Pennsylvania is so important. It's not the be-all, end-all, right? Either candidate can win this election without winning Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania changes the math. Because of those 19 electoral votes, you really only need 3 states to get the win. After that, you're looking at 4, maybe even 5 to try and get to that 270 mark. So we're going to be watching that as it comes in, and Pennsylvania, both really want it badly. We'll see who gets it tomorrow. Natasha, Ukee.
I know, the key to the White House goes through the Keystone State.
Sure does.
Always said it. Thank you so much, Dan.
And Professor Snyder with that new math, my math. It's all about getting that magic number. Still ahead. It's not just about the presidency.
It's also, Ukee, about the balance of power that's at stake in Congress, and we'll talk to you about that as well. Stay with us, everyone. Back in a moment.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it?
I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward.
We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world.
I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world.
Well, of course, the race for the White House between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris is the biggest race that we will be watching nationally. But other races in our area will also have national effects, like on the balance of power in Congress. Now, in Pennsylvania, the U.S. Senate race, we're watching that closely. It has gotten very contentious with millions spent on political ads. Democrat Bob Casey is running for a 4th term. Republican Dave McCormick is a businessman who is challenging him. And right now, this race is considered to be a toss-up. Now, let's go to New Jersey. 2 men are running to replace Bob Menendez, who resigned after his conviction on corruption charges. Democrat Andy Kim is currently a U.S. congressman for New Jersey's 3rd District, and he is facing Republican Curtis Bashaw, a hotel entrepreneur in Cape May. Now, the race for U.S. Senate in Delaware, this could be a history-making event. Democrat Lisa Blunt Rochester is running to replace retiring Senator Tom Carper. She's facing Republican Eric Hansen. Now, Blunt Rochester is currently a U.S. Congresswoman for Delaware, but if she wins, she will be the first black woman to represent Delaware in the Senate.
And Natasha, I really want to hone in on one of those races, specifically the race in Pennsylvania. You mentioned all the money that's been funneled into that race between Bob Casey, the Democratic incumbent, and Republican Dave McCormick. And that is because of how things sit in the Senate. So Pennsylvania may not only help decide the White House, may help decide who controls the United States Senate. So we are looking at a very close race here. And what we're really going to be watching in this race, how each of these candidates runs when you compare them with the presidential candidate on their ticket. Is Bob Casey running in line with Vice President Harris? Is he a little ahead? Is he a little behind? Same for Dave McCormick. But let me show you the balance of power in the United States Senate as it sits right now. Democrats have that 1-seat advantage. The problem for them is they're kind of running an uphill battle in some of the races across the country to try and hold power there. So we mentioned the Casey-McCormick race here in Pennsylvania. That race now in play. There is a tough race in Ohio with a Democratic incumbent. That puts that race in play. Montana, Democratic incumbent, running a very tough race in a deep red state. That is now in play. And in West Virginia, deep red West Virginia, Democrat turned independent Joe Manchin, his seat also now up for grabs as he is retiring. So Republicans are looking to grab all of those, but you see how many seats are in play. This is why this seat really important for both parties. Ukee and Natasha.
And Dan, there are a number of House races in our area that could be critical to which party holds control. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland talks about what's at stake.
The balance of power in the U.S. House at this moment really is a margin of 4. That is incredibly small, almost historically so. And whoever controls the Congress in January could be either a firewall against or a shot of nitroglycerin for a future President Harris or future President Trump. What's important to note is that any 4 races swinging one way or the other nationwide could shift that balance of power. And by our CBS News tabulation, there are at least 4 competitive races in Pennsylvania alone. Yes, not just the Senate race, not just the presidential race, but millions of dollars pouring into the Commonwealth to swing House races. There's one in Bucks County. There's one closer to the Lehigh Valley. And there is a pure toss-up, according to outside experts, forming near Harrisburg in the race for Pennsylvania's 10th congressional district. Just the way the lines are drawn and the fact that we're in a battleground state to begin with, this is not terribly surprising. But it's difficult for these candidates to break through and reach voters at a moment when those voters have already been marinating in campaign ads from Team Harris, Team Trump, and the Senate candidates.
Well, you know, Scott did mention one of those House races in Pennsylvania. It is in Bucks County.
Sure is. Democrat Ashley Aziz is trying to unseat Republican Brian Fitzpatrick. Now, this race is a rematch of 2022. Fitzpatrick was first elected to Congress in 2016.
Well, come election night, we will be looking at tight House races in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Almost here. One organization is doing everything it can to get people to the polls. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has launched a campaign to mobilize voters.
And our Waukesha Bailey talked with members of a local chapter about their plans for Election Day.
The right to vote, the right to choose. You may have seen this campaign ad created and sponsored by the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
As a nonpartisan organization, but predominantly African American, we most certainly understand what is on the table here.
Their motto is fortitude on the front line leading up to November 5th. They've been holding national rallies blitz across the U.S. and here in Philly. Kimberly Lloyd was recently named president of the local chapter. Born and raised in Uptown, she remembers her first time voting.
I first registered to vote in the second term of Reagan's administration. And the proud moment for me was my father taking me to the polling place, which was my elementary school. And I was 18.
Now she and her sorority sisters are making sure others get to the polls come Election Day that they've dubbed E-Day. They are taking over Ogons Avenue in Northwest Philadelphia alongside the group Black Men Vote.
At least probably about 5,000 cars go through that corridor. We're going to be out there with our signage. Have you voted today? Today is the day to vote. If you're in a vehicle, you will see us. If you're walking, you will see us.
Displaying acts of public service was something the sorority was founded on back in 1913. The same year, they marched in the women's suffrage procession in Washington, D.C. More than 100 years later, their mission is still the same.
We're doing everything to make sure that individuals know you have to exercise your vote. It is your right.
Waukesha Bailey, CBS News, Philadelphia.
America Decides. Our special election coverage continues in just a moment.
Stay with us, everyone.
The CBS News Philadelphia investigative team. I'm Liz Crawford.
I'm Joe Holden. We go behind the scenes with local boards of elections to discover what it is they're doing to secure your vote.
Now, counties across the Philadelphia region are receiving a lot of mail-in ballots, but state law keeps them sealed until Election Day. Counting can't start until 7 a.m.
It does take a lot of work and time to count hundreds of thousands of mail ballots. And if we don't know the result on election night, it is not a sign that there's anything wrong. It is a sign of that the staff continuing to do their job.
The message from election officials across Pennsylvania: be patient.
And today and over the next few days, the CBS Philadelphia investigative team will track your vote and keep you updated until the last ballot is counted.
All right, Liz, Joe, thank you so much. Now, it all comes down to this. Will Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump be the 47th president of the United States?
They are both looking for that magic number, 270 electoral votes. We will be with you every step of the way tomorrow as polls close, ballots are counted, and states are called, especially those critical, extremely critical, battleground.
Right here in Pennsylvania,
Yes,
we're one of
indeed.
them, as we know. So you will get all of the results that you need. It's going to be live from right here in our CBS News Philadelphia virtual reality election studio. Coverage does begin bright and early at 4:30 tomorrow morning. Tomorrow night, we will also bring you results live on our streaming service starting at 8 p.m. We will also have updates on air throughout the night and full coverage on CBS Philadelphia at 11. Now, thank you so much for watching tonight. We do appreciate it. I'm Natasha Brown.
And I'm Ukee Washington. It's just about time. America Decides 2024. We'll see you on election night.